Record. Okay. Hi guys, I'm Melissa Davis, and this week I read the 2016 K through 12 the Horizon Report about the key trends that are accelerating technology. And my focus this week was on coding as a literacy, and that was one of the short-term trends. And I picked this because actually my son has really gotten into coding lately, so it kind of stood out for me. Basically, coding are the rules that computers need to work. And sometimes it's called HTML, sometimes JavaScript, but a lot of people just call it coding now because it is basically codes for the computer. It requires some computer science knowledge, but it also requires creativity and problem solving, which is beneficial in future jobs with coding and outside of coding. Right now, there are estimated that there's not going to be enough people to fill the jobs. There's going to be more jobs than people. Code.org projected by 2020, so just coming up, that there will be 1.4 million computing jobs, but only 400,000 computer science students. So obviously the market is there, and so it's a smart way to go in. So they're trying to bring the curriculum of coding into the K through 12 classroom. So that includes like designing websites, creations of games and apps, things like that. So the focus is moving away from how to use computers to basically focusing on how they work and how they're built. So in Europe, they've added it as a required curriculum, like Australia. And so the United States is the government's wanting to kind of compete with the countries that are starting to do that, and also realizing that coding is helping with the economy. So our government is starting to find ways to support it. Obama came up with an initiative that allows K through 12 students a way to learn those skills. And then there was a program called Hour of Code in 2013, to where in school they focus on one day of coding. And they also do it throughout the year, but it's that one day that's focused. And that's actually where my son learned it this year, and he fell in love with it. And so the goal, of course, is to also, I talked about digital equity last week, and so it was mentioned in this report as well, how even though coding is coming up, it's the big hot topic, there are still kids who don't have access to these resources and the technology. And so keeping in mind how to give them that access. In Los Angeles, South Los Angeles, there is a nonprofit that basically gives a place for teens to come to use the devices and have access and learn how to build web pages, and they have mentors that can go and help them. So they're finding ways to try to help with the digital equity. They've also noticed how minorities there's not as many doing the computer science, and so they're trying to find ways to reach that. There's a group called Girls Who Code who are targeting 6th grade and up for coding skills, because they noticed that the amount of women in computer science has dropped 37% in 1984 to 18% in 2015. So, which was shocking to me, because you would think that it would increase with girls being able to do more. But anyway, so that was surprising to me. But anyways, coding's being a good thing, and like I said, my son absolutely loves it, and I know he did Hour of Code at his school too. So
yeah, I haven't heard of the Hour of Code. That's really cool. So I did the 2017 Nordic Schools reflection, and so the 4 things that I looked at were the time of adoption for 2 to 3 years, and that was adaptive learning technologies, artificial intelligence, mixed realities, and robotics. Adaptive learning technologies is just those programming and that software that includes self-monitored progress for students. This is something that we have in our district. I've talked about it before, the computer program we have, and it just really, like, a benefit to me as a classroom teacher is it really allows students to fill in some of those gaps and bridge gaps between concepts that they don't really understand. So that's really helpful to me, because I can pull as many small groups as I can in a day, but to have a program that can individualize every single student's progress is super beneficial. So I love the adaptive learning technologies. I think it's really great to incorporate that in our classrooms. The artificial intelligence, also known as machine learning, I've never heard it called that, but that was interesting because, you know, that's just the more of the human perspective and making decisions with like robots and stuff like that. I think for me, I feel like that's out of my like comfort zone. I'm like, I don't really understand all that. It's kind of a lot. It seems really cool, but I think of like practical things like when you go to the grocery store and you self-checkout, you know, like the machine is doing all these stuff for you. And I think we're going to see more of that, you know, with the drones and stuff delivering your packages to your front door. All of that is just really cool, but it's also, you know, that level of like, I don't know, what's too much, you know, and I think that's kind of a hot topic issue with that. The mixed reality is just the combination of physical and virtual realities together. So it talked a lot about incorporating this in the classroom, especially in our sciences, just like anatomy and biology, like especially kids that have to take, you know, the general biology class. A lot of them are like, this is way over my head, or I have no interest in this. And it talked about using like 3D images to make connections to like, you know, it's bringing that stuff off of the page to help students make connections. So I thought that was a really, really cool concept, especially in like high school, you know, when you have to do all those core classes and your sciences and things like that. Like that would be a really cool thing to incorporate. And then the last one was robotics. Robotics is just, you know, taking those objects, putting them together to create something. And I know our school has a robotics team. They do a robotics competition, you know, in the year. And that's just including that STEM concept, now STEAM, but creating that STEM and creating opportunities for students to really explore different uses of technology to create something, which is really, really cool. So those were the 4 things that I kind of focused on in my research this week.
Very interesting. Thank you. And I read the 2018 Higher Education edition, and I focused on I read the 2017 and I explained to you guys how it's broken down into long-term, mid-term, and short-term. It was very similar to the 2017 higher education one, and I actually even thought, like, did I print out the right one? But it talked about a lot of the same things, but it also incorporated some new trends that higher education and such as the universities are trying to incorporate into their universities. I looked into to the midterm trend, which is within the next 3 to 5 years, universities are trying to incorporate this more. I looked at the Open Educational Resources, which is an acronym for OER. And this is when universities provide students with free online like textbooks, a wide range of materials such as full courses, course materials, modules, textbooks, videos, assignments, where you can do everything in one spot, but for no extra cost for students. The goal of this was to help students not have so much so much debt, because we all know how much textbooks cost. They're expensive. It says even right here that a full-time undergraduate spends about $1,200 per academic years on textbooks, which is right around what I've spent before. And so what the universities are trying to do is incorporate this program so that students are able to access all these things, but for free instead. For example, a university in where is it? I forgot I don't see the name of it, but they incorporated this program into their university, where thousands of students were able to get textbooks for free. They didn't have to pay for them through this program, and they saw a higher percentage of success. There was less dropouts from classes, and most of the students had a greater percentage of a C compared to the students who stuck to like a traditional program where you have to buy textbooks on the side and you have to even buy all these applications to use within the course. So I thought that was very interesting because I would love something like this in universities, just like how this class incorporated all the Horizon reports and they were for free. We didn't have to pay for them. And I think that was very helpful for us. And it's something that should be integrated into universities more so that students have a lower cost of to a lower tuition. And as it said, it also helps students because it's all in one spot. And then but the only thing, the downfall is that these programs have to come from somewhere. So they have to be paid for creation and distribution. So that's where the universities kind of have like a challenge, because it's like, well, we're going to provide this for students, but where's the money going to come from?
Mm-hmm.
But I just thought it was something interesting that I would love to see more in our universities, and I'm sure a lot of students would also like to.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, I also read the 2017 K-12 Horizon report, and my focus is going to be on two of the key trends that accelerate the technology implementation. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about advancing cultures of innovation and how it is related to our growing focus on measuring learning. Well, we know that the first one talks about developing agile and collaborative mindsets in our students. And so in order for us to do that, we need to transform our culture of education and also transform the curricula to more project-based learning. So that will help our students, to become more hands-on and to provide them with the, leadership opportunities and, to build strength of character and communication and all those social and emotional skills that they need for the workforce and for higher education. So in order to do that, we need to move away from that growing focus that we have on measuring the learning. And so everything nowadays is test driven and working towards that measuring of that assessment. And so it's been said on that article that standardized tests tend to narrow the curriculum. Instead of expanding it, it narrows it down to the test, and also fail to raise the standards of the whole set of education. And at the same time applying, punitive consequences to, school systems who don't measure up to the standard. And so they said that we need to move away from that mentality, and we need to use the learning analytics that we have mentioned here before to determine the gaps of the learning and the gaps of the knowledge of our kids, and obviously combining it with formative assessment in order to make it more like a competency-based learning for them. If we do that, we can advance to a culture of innovation in our society, in our school systems. And so that's what I found a little bit interesting about this article.
It's awesome. Thanks for sharing.
Yes. So I think this wraps it up. Thank you, ladies.
Thank
you.
you.